Okay, so I have to do this quickly because I only have about a half an hour before I have to leave for work. But it's been a week since I saw Black Friday, actually in LA, and it was so good. I think that seeing StarKid live is definitely very different from ever seeing them on the screen. And if you ever get an opportunity to go, I highly recommend it. But more importantly, I needed to talk about the actual show because I feel like there was a lot of hype for this one. Because A, I think that the guy who didn't like musicals really kind of put StarKid back on the map as opposed to some of their later projects, like probably post-Twisted, I would say. I think that there was a lot more emphasis on fans kind of, freaking out. And I think that's because it was an original story as opposed to a parody or a comedy musical adaptation, which I think is a good thing. I think that Nick Lang and Matt Lang are very creative people, and I'm really glad that they have decided to partner with Jeff Blim, who is a lot, in a good way, and it's good for them to stretch creatively. So, and I think Black Friday has been an experiment. That's my theory, and I'm actually quite pleased with it. So I actually took some fucking notes because I'm a nerd, and it's the only way I can process things. And in no particular order, I'm just gonna kind of go through a couple of them. I first want to talk about the plot because I'm not a music person, and I don't know how to, like, all of the songs were good. And I watched the digital ticket, so I was able to focus on the lyrics a little bit more, because when I was at the show, I was focused on, like, being in the same room with the effects and the actors and their dancing and stuff like that, so I was able to focus on the lyrics a little bit more clearly. But I'm still not a music person, so we're going to focus on the plot instead, because it actually is something I'm even slightly qualified to talk about. So for this one, I thought it was interesting because in comparison to the guy who didn't like musicals, this one was far more plot heavy. And the thing that I noticed was that the plots were kind of introduced in reverse order of their ability to destroy the world. Let me explain. So, kind of the way the musical starts off with is, of course, with Wiggly, but after that spoilers, by the way. Spoilers for everything. Spoilers for the guy who didn't like musicals, spoilers for Black Friday, spoilers for Twin Peaks, spoilers for, like, Stephen King. I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff. Don't watch this if you haven't seen Black Friday, is what I'm saying, because I'm about to ruin the show for you, okay? So, you can't come at me now. Please don't. But anyway, so the show starts off with Paul and Emma. Yeah. And, Emma's brother-in-law, Tom, going to get his son the Wiggly doll. And so that's plot number one. Plot number two is Lex Foster trying to get her and her sister Hannah and her boyfriend Ethan out to California and away from Lex's abusive drunken mother. Plot number three is Becky Barnes and Tom's relationship. And that's okay. Sure, fine, whatever. Back up. And then plot number four is the plot with McNamara and the president and trying to stop the apocalypse. And the way I just described those is the way that they're introduced. So it's almost backwards. Oh, shit. And part of the Wiggly plot is Linda Monroe's thing. I still don't know how to feel about Linda Monroe. I think it's primarily because I work at a place where I have met far too many people who are exactly like Linda Monroe, so my immediate reaction to her is, I fucking hate you. And that's just a fact. So it's kind of weird because you would assume that the first plot to be introduced would be the one that is going to destroy the world, and it really isn't. If anything, it's like the most heartwarming. I'm like, oh, Tom's trying his best, kind of. And then the whole thing with Lex, I would say that one has the most emotional payoff, except for the part where she forgets that her boyfriend Ethan died, like, before Act 1 is even over. Yeah, Robert Mayon dies again, and I'm just starting to think that maybe he asked Nick if he can just die in every show. Which, fair. Okay. And then it's only at the end where we really get to see the threat that Wiggly poses. So it's not like the aliens and the guy who didn't like musical, where, they kind of say up front that this, like, the apotheosis is upon us. You will join them and die. And so it's weird that Wiggly only kind of becomes a real and present threat, like, post Act 2. And for me, like, I liked the guy who didn't like musicals more character-driven story. I think that it's some of the strongest character writing that Nick and Matt have ever done. I do think that this one is a better return to form in general for StarKid, because I know, especially in the commentary for the guy who didn't like musicals, they really talked about not having enough songs in that one, because of course part of the point is the main character can't sing because he doesn't like musicals and he doesn't want to join the apocalypse. So it makes it kind of a slower burn in regards to songs. The other thing is, and this is something that I'm seeing a lot on Tumblr and Reddit, of people being confused by the ending. And even when I saw it for the first time, I was like, oh, they ended the world again. Like, clearly what this is Hatchetfield is kind of like, it's in an alternate reality, or a time loop, or a simulation. Like, somebody on Reddit was suggesting that it's a simulation of, like, different ways the world can end, so like an alien invasion or the nuclear apocalypse or something like that. And I was like, that's an interesting idea. I like it. I'm down with that. But I've seen a lot of people be confused. They're like, the ending was so ambiguous, and I'm like, it's the nuclear apocalypse. The world's over. Like, everyone's gonna die again, and like the people who don't die are going to live miserable lives. So I don't know how to respond to that, really. And the other thing is, it didn't really answer a firm question about what exactly is happening in Hatchetfield, and personally, I think that's okay. In fact, I think that's a very positive thing, because it leaves it very open-ended, and it means that Nick and Matt can return to it, as many times as they want. I don't think that they would do more than a trilogy, or like a trilogy .1, because people are so insistent on Working Boys. We'll get to that. And so I'm like, okay, like, leave it as open-ended as possible, because I am perfectly fine with as many horror comedy musicals you want to do. Like, that's my favorite genre of musical, frankly. So just do it all day. I don't care. And the other thing is, I just want to clarify, an ambiguous ending is okay. And for the genre that they're trying to adapt, like especially Lynchian horror, David Lynch has never had a clear-cut ending. As a matter of fact, Twin Peaks, both times, you know what, no, all 3 times, basically, has refused to answer any and all questions. David Lynch is like, nope, we're not gonna, I'm not going to answer any of your questions. Season 3 ended with, like, the universe's light switch being flipped. Like, what year is it? And then scream, and then just a hard cut to black. That's an ambiguous ending. The nuclear apocalypse is not an ambiguous ending. Okay? Like, it didn't answer any questions, but the world's over. I don't know what to tell people. So that's just kind of how I feel personally about the plot. I feel that because it's so much more kind of, it's more of a ensemble piece as opposed to The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, which was very much Paul's story. Like, Paul is the main character of that. Like, it's not really, you know, despite what all the Higgins fans will tell you, Paul is 100% the main character of that story. And for this one, it's like, who is the main character of this story? Is it Tom? Is it Lex? Is it Hannah? I don't know. I feel like all of those have, like, you could justify any of those. So it's definitely a little bit more piecemeal, which is fine. You know, like, it didn't need to be a rehash. I would have been more annoyed if it had been. Performance-wise, my man Dylan Saunders is back, and once again, being really intense, like, almost to the point of where I'm like, dude, like, you don't need to be this intense. like, he is giving, like, a Jean Valjean level performance, and I'm like, whoa. Wow, like, I'm glad that you're bringing it, but whoa. Wow. My man John got to sing for more than 2 songs in this one, and I have never been so happy. I was so happy. Oh, God. He's just so perfect. I love him. Sorry. Lauren Lopez, once again, kind of a return to form for her. She got a brief cameo as Emma. Yay. And then she is playing a character named Linda Monroe, so another kind of antagonistic character, which I think is interesting. I feel that, in general, Lauren is more comfortable in antagonistic roles, like Draco Malfoy and Draco Malfoy. And in general, like, she likes the kind of more intense and hammy performance that it allows her, which I think is fair. I don't think that's a problem at all. And she did fine. Her voice was great. Like I said, not a musical person. So I'm like, yeah, nope, sounded great. Sounded like Lauren. Sounds like she brought it. Joey doing his best impression of Bob. In, like, a very intense manner. I liked his denim on denim outfit. That was cool. I was also sitting in the row where he just handed that chick his apple, and I was sitting there, and that poor girl, she couldn't clap her hands for the rest of the show. She's like, I will just hold this, I guess. So that was neat. And I liked it. I liked seeing Joey kind of be able to play more of a villainous character. Jeff Blim, as always, got his Jack Nicholson eyes on, you know, just staring into your soul threatening you with a baseball bat. And I thought that was really good. And he got to play McNamara again. And I was so excited. Oh, McNamara. I love him so much. And that was really cool. He did a great job as Man in a Hurry. I really thought that Man in a Hurry really brought the whole show together. Yeah, definitely. Rabbit Man, you know, I kind of touched on him earlier as Ethan Green and Santa Claus. So that was a twist. Where, you know, he died in the first act as Ethan. And then he came back as Santa Claus. Teenage Santa Claus in high school. I will just tell you that with no context. And you can figure it out. And he was great. He was perfectly fine. Super great. I hope he doesn't end up with another cult like last time. Both, I'm gonna have to check their names real fast, I'm so sorry. Both Kendall, who played Hannah, and for a brief moment Tim, she did amazing. Her voice is so good, and she's like 11. And she was, you know, there were times where it was like, you need to show genuine terror, and she totally took it and ran with it. I thought that she did a great job. So, yeah. And then, Angela did a great job. She was so good as Lex. Like, I know lots of people were very disappointed that we weren't going to get, Mariah back. And I wish her luck, by the way, in her, Mean Girls musical. Good luck. And I think that she would have done fine in the role, but in a way, I think that Angela, like, kind of had the rough around the edges appearance a little bit more than Mariah would have had, and I think that it just fit a little bit better. You know, like, I think that in a way, like, Mariah wouldn't have fit the role, like, physically, if that makes sense and doesn't sound terrible. I'm gonna get yelled at in the comments. Anyway, and she did really, really well. She blew away California MIA. She did an amazing job. And then later on in, I don't have the track list in front of me, hang on. And then later on in Black Friday, whoa, she did so good. I'm a fan. Yeah, and, you know, I think, and once again, a return to form for StarKids, they used puppets, so that was neat. And, you know, the other thing I wanted to touch on, like the other big thing for Black Friday, it was tighter thematically, if that makes sense. So, the guy who didn't like musicals, kind of the conclusion I came to is it was a rage against authority, and that's the closest I've been able to come to in regards to its theme. It's never really been clear to me if there even was a theme going in. It's just how I interpreted it. This one was very clear. This one was very clear on what it was thematically. It really understood. It was like, you know, capitalism is, what it's doing is it's feeding on people's desire to fill a hole within themselves, which I think is a good theme. I like it, you know, and I feel like if anyone is going to tackle that, I think that the Langs and Jeff Blim are good choices. And Feast or Famine was one of the best songs in the show. Like, it was a fight song, and it was so good. And additionally, Our Doors Were Open, which was Corey's solo, was so good. Dude, he rocked it. I was so glad he got a song this time. A delightfully hammy, evil song. So that was neat. And, you know, just some miscellaneous notes now, since I've kind of covered its story, characters, and theme. Just some miscellaneous notes. Once again, spoilers for everything. If you've made it this far and you haven't left me a mean comment, congratulations. So something else that I noticed was I've been kind of mentally comparing it to other things in the horror genre. And this is kind of what I came up with loosely, because I know that there's a third musical on tap for it, which I guess is called Nerdy Prudes Must Die. So I think that the guy who didn't like musicals was more Lynchian. It was more based on like David Lynch ideas and themes and kind of tone. Black Friday reminded me more of Stephen King, with a touch of Stranger Things thrown in there. Like, I think that there was some deliberate touches or references made more to Stranger Things. But of course Stranger Things takes a lot of its inspiration from David King. David King. Holy shit. Stephen King. Thank you. I'm here all night. And so my prediction is that Nerdy Prudes Must Die is going to be based on Wes Craven. And it's going to be a classic slasher movie. That's my hope. I hope that it's based on Wes Craven. And Matt and Nick, if you're out there, feel free to use that, and I won't even ask you for credit, sweetie. Finally, so here's a theory that I have. We're on the miscellaneous page now. Here's a theory. McNamara mentions in this one, in Black Friday, that he had a teacher who went crazy after being exposed to the black and white, which is kind of like their Black Lodge, White Lodge thing, I'm assuming, or their upside down, or, you know, whatever their alternate dimension from whence evil comes. And I think that McNamara's teacher, I think it's going to be Higgins. I think that's why Higgins moved to Hatchetfield and has locked himself in a bunker, and because he used to work for Peep. We'll see. I've been wrong before. I'm such a slut for Paul and Emma. It's right after the opening number, and it fades to black, and then the lights come back up, and it's Paul and Emma. And they're going to spend Black Friday with Tom and Tim, and I have never been so happy. I'm like, we could end the show right now. I'm totally satisfied. And like, we're good. Everything I wanted has already been delivered to me. We can end the show right now, and I will have no problems. Who the fuck is Webby? Like, that was the only one where I was kind of waiting for an answer or a hint, because Webby is Hannah's imaginary friend, and clearly it's just the conduit in which Hannah understands the Black Lodge or the black and white or whatever. And I, like, the name implies spider. Is it? Is there gonna be an orgy scene in Nerdy Prudes Must Die? Are we gonna go into the sewers? Jean Valjean? I literally have no idea. And I have yet to see an answer that satisfies. I hope it's a space scorpion. That would be optimal for me, just because it's not a spider. But whatever. And then Corey's character name in this one was Frank Pricely, and I'm like, that's a great pun. I'm very proud of that pun. I like that pun. And that was it. That was the only comments that I had for this one. Once it comes out on YouTube, I will be more interested in the fan reactions then, because the digital ticket is kind of and so otherwise it's like the other people who have seen the stage show. And I feel like this is one where it really is going to benefit from like a good tight edit, and I know that Nick will do a great job on that. Past that, I don't really have any other comments or questions. Only compliments. I think that they did another great job. I think that this show, it's not what I expected, but in retrospect, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense for this to be the follow-up. So I guess we'll see. Also, the brunch for the backing tier at 4 p.m., which isn't when brunch is had traditionally, that was really, really fun. And I'm really glad that they were able to host that. I think that was a really cool way for fans to connect. I think that maybe something for them to consider in the future would be to do more fan meetups. I know, of course, they have, like, 0 time, and all of them have to work real people jobs, too, because theater doesn't pay. But I think that they're all such genuine, down-to-earth people that it would be cool to talk to them more often. And I think that if they continue to do live streams throughout the year, I think that would also be really neat. But that's my 2 cents, and nobody has to listen to me. God bless. I don't think anybody would want to. Alright, so that's it. Also, if you're waiting on the fanfiction reviews, they'll come someday. Alright, goodbye.